Texas Ranger beat writer Kennedi Landry. She has been covering the Rangers since 2020. We are excited to talk to her about Will Venable. Hi, Kennedi.
Hey, how are y'all doing?
We are excited to talk to you. You can follow Kennedi at Ken, Kenn, Landry with a Y on X, Twitter, or whatever. We're excited about Will Venable. Should we be? You've known Will over the past 2 years. What have you learned to know about the senior associate manager? Did I get that title right? He shrugs.
Yeah, I didn't know we had those until they hired Will. I'm not going to lie to you. I was like, what is he doing? But no, Will's great. I think it's a great hire. Obviously, he's worked under some legendary managers. Bruce Bochy winning the first ever World Series in Rangers franchise history, obviously being at the top of that list. But yeah, he's obviously wanted to be a manager. I was curious just because he turned down a couple of opportunities to interview for a couple of places last year, high profile places as well. So I think this is a great hire for the White Sox. It'd be very interesting to see how it goes, obviously, considering what this last year has looked like for you guys up in the South Side.
I'm just still flummoxed about him accepting the job for the White Sox because of the reasons you just talked about, and I'm a pessimistic White Sox fan. What's the reaction down there in Texas? I mean, we're led to believe that he was like the guy that's going to be the incumbent. It's going to be taking over for Bruce Bochy whenever he decides to wrap it up again. So what's the reaction down there, and why do you think he chose the White Sox as his destination for the next couple of years?
Yeah, I think among fans, I think there's definitely a bit of confusion because he has been a bit of the heir apparent, I guess you would say, to Bruce Bochy. He spent a couple years in the North Side, spent a couple years in Boston, came to Texas, obviously with a little bit of a bump in title, I guess you would say, like we said, associate manager. And, he's been really great here. So it's definitely, the Rangers have never really, at least under Chris Young the last few years I've been here, stopped their assistants from taking interviews elsewhere. Obviously, hitting coach Tim Hires just recently left to take the same position with the Braves, even though the Rangers would have liked to have him back. He moved closer to home. So the Rangers have never stopped their guys from, looking elsewhere for, exploring other opportunities. So, Will turning down the opportunity to interview for the Mets position last year and the Cleveland position last year, those are two, high profile jobs. Cleveland made it all the way to the ALCS this year just to get beat by the Yankees. So a lot of confusion, a lot of, I think the Rangers are, happy that Will gets to have this opportunity. But from the fans, it's like, oh, like are people jumping ship for a reason or like what's going on? I don't think it's that. I don't think people are jumping ship after, a struggle that the Rangers really did have this year. But I think it's just maybe Will feels like this is the right time. It's the right opportunity to kind of take a club that, for lack of a better term, was one of the worst in baseball history and see what he can do there, start from scratch and just, a young GM, just, again, start from scratch and see where it goes. And opportunities come every few years. It's very likely that, he may interview whenever Bruce Bochy retires to come to the Rangers. But I think he sees this as a good opportunity out in Chicago to kind of do things, kind of feel how he would manage this situation, as a young manager.
When Grady Sizemore took over as the interim in the middle of the season here, we heard from the players constantly how much they respected him for his relatively recent playing career. Chris Getz, who's the general manager, has gotten a lot of the same compliments. Not only Will Venable, does he fall into that bucket, but so does Chris Young, who you brought up. Do you get the same vibe from the players down in Texas that is something they really appreciate, is having those guys with that kind of major league playing experience kind of running the show?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that really does come up almost every time, we get the first press conference with a free agent. It's like, what do you respect most about Chris Young? And it does come up, hey, he did this not too long ago. He won a World Series less than 10 years ago with the Royals. So there's a lot of respect that players do have for Chris Young. And I think players respect Will a lot too, obviously. He actually managed one game this year that goes as a loss under Bruce Bochy's record. And all the guys were like, yeah, this is great. Like, it's just good to, have his type of energy. He's only, I think, 40 years old as he his birthday was yesterday. He's still young. He's been around. Like I said, managed under a couple of different types of managers too. Obviously, Alex Cora in Boston, Joe Madden in Chicago, and Bruce Bochy here. And I think he's young, he's fun, but he's so intelligent. obviously an Ivy leaguer, which is something we see more in the front office than we do on the field and in the dugout a lot of times. And I think it's a very valuable tool that you don't really think about often in terms of, hey, this guy's been where we've been, again, not too long ago. And the guys do appreciate that.
Absolutely. We are here with Kennedi Landry. She is the Texas Rangers beat writer for MLB.com. How would you describe Will's demeanor? We haven't met him just yet, but is he a guy that, is probably looser in the dugout, but a little bit more straight-faced with you guys, or does he bring that kind of looseness to the media as well?
Yeah, I was thinking about this yesterday. I was actually on the phone with Scott Merkin, the .com reporter for for the White Sox, and Will hasn't interacted with the media as much as maybe we have with a lot of other coaches. I mean, he coaches the outfielders for the Rangers, so anytime Adolis Garcia won a Gold Glove last year. Obviously, Will had a hand in the steps that he took to get there. They have Leody Taveras, Evan Carter, Wyatt Langford, all of whom have been improved over the last few years in terms of their defense in that side. But we have Tony Beasley as a third base coach who handles a lot of the infielders, who does a lot of the talking in terms of coaches. In that one game that we had for Will when Bruce Bochy had a personal matter he had to take care of, and he was very kind of just low key and chill. He answered the questions exactly kind of how you expected him to. He wasn't saying anything crazy. He wasn't, Boch likes to joke around sometimes. And, he's been around the block. Obviously, he knows what he's doing. But Will is, he is very loose and fun with the players in the clubhouse. He's close in age to a lot of these guys. I think Max Scherzer might be older than him. So I think he gets along really well with the players, and when he's talking to the media, he's kind of straight. He doesn't beat around the bush. He tells you like it is. That loss that the Rangers had to the Tigers over the summer, and he was just like, yeah, hey, you got to do what you got to do. The Tigers hit 2 solo home runs that won the game. The Rangers hit 1 solo home run, and it was kind of just the same struggles that the Rangers had throughout the year when Bruce Bochy was there, and he was like, you got to do what you got to do, and some things don't fall your way. And it was kind of, I don't want to say coach speak, because I think he was obviously in a precarious situation, stepping in for one game for a Hall of Fame manager and having a loss go against Bruce Bochy's record. But that's kind of a lot of how a lot of our interactions with Will went. He's straightforward, to the point, gives us an answer, and we go about it.
And Kennedy, you just talked about the Gold Glove that Adolis won last year. We here in Chicago remember him, or not him, Travis Jankowski stealing the walk-off home run by Andrew Vaughn this year. And so this is part of Will's day-to-day with the Texas Rangers. What other things, and it's a breath of fresh air for us White Sox fans as far as defense is concerned, if he's going to be out there having that tutelage to the outfielders, because they need that. But what other day-to-day things would Will Venable be assessed with as the associate manager? Because it's a new title that I hadn't heard of, as you said, before Will actually got it.
Yeah, I think, the Rangers have a bench coach that's also Donnie Ecker, who I believe also interviewed for this position. And he is also an offensive coordinator. It felt like the Rangers made up a lot of terms these last few years that I didn't think we had in baseball. But I think Will handles a lot more of the bench coaching responsibilities, I guess you would say. And while Donnie handles a lot of the big picture hitting, offensive structure, obviously we had a hitting coach and a offensive coordinator with the Rangers. So those two worked more together, while Will did most of the bench coaching responsibilities, whether that was, looking at challenges and replays and all of the things that a bench coach did, just kind of being Bruce Bochy's right-hand man, walking out to the field when we don't want Bruce Bochy on his rough knees. I remember specifically when Adolis Garcia got hurt in the outfield last year. It was Will running to the outfield, and obviously not Bruce Bochy. So just a lot of those things that you typically see of a bench coach is really what Will was doing with Texas.
Obviously, the Rangers won the World Series last year. They'll be the reigning champs for at least another few hours. But what do you think this opportunity for Will, going from a team that just was at the very top of the mountain to now going to a team who's got a very long-term rebuild ahead of them? I mean, the difference there between those two environments, what does that look like for him?
Yeah, like I said, I think it's a fascinating opportunity, and it's long-term. He came to the Rangers after they signed Corey Seager and Marcus Semien, after they signed Bruce Bochy, after they signed Jacob deGrom. You know, he was one of the last kind of plugins of that World Series winning staff. And for him to come to Chicago, it's obviously really starting from the ground up. And I think it's a challenge for him. And I think he's the type of guy that embraces that kind of challenge, to be able to work with Chris Getz and to be able to, you know, take a lot of these young guys and get some, you know, veteran free agents or whoever that might be in here and build it from the ground up and hopefully get back into contention. It's obviously not going to happen all at once. And I think obviously he's going to need a little bit of leash there, especially from fans. He's, you know, it's not going to happen at the snap of a finger. You don't go from winning 120 games to 95 in one off season. But he's a guy that I think is committed to that long-term process to be able to get Chicago back to the top of the AL Central.
Kennedy, we've been trying to figure out who Will might bring in to fill out his staff, and you brought up Donnie Ecker. You also talked about the hitting coach leaving for Atlanta. Do you think that Bochy might be switching out his staff, possibly? Do you think it is possible that Ecker might follow Venable to Chicago, even though Donnie pulled out of the White Sox manager search?
You know, I don't foresee that happening in terms of Donnie leaving. Obviously, the Rangers don't have a hitting coach right now. Donnie is pretty much fully in charge of all of that. And I think we saw at the end of the season, the Rangers said, hey, all of our coaches are invited back. We want all of them back. Both Chris Young and Bruce Bochy said that to us. So I don't think it's going to be, unless, you know, if Donnie would like to leave, I think the Rangers aren't going to stop him, obviously. But I don't think Bruce Bochy is really jumping the gun to switch out his staff members. He obviously likes a lot of these guys. A lot of them are really holdovers from the Chris Woodward era. Everybody but Will, I believe, was a holdover from the Chris Woodward era, and they all like Boch came in. He said he liked the staff. Chris Young obviously likes the staffs a lot, and they've been around. They won the World Series, coached an All-Star game together. So I think I don't foresee them leaving, but obviously anything can happen, and Will has a lot of good relationships with the guys who are around. So things could change, and I could be completely wrong, obviously, but it'll be interesting.
All right, cool, Kennedy. I think that's mainly all of our questions, but I also have been fairly distracted by your album wall. I could see the Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. I could see Whitney. I could see the Carter 3.
wait,
what else is on there?
Thriller.
Yeah.
Thriller.
Yeah, Thriller. So this is My Pride and
Harry.
Joy is the album wall. We've got
Fleetwood
this.
Mac up top.
It is. It's a Fleetwood Mac. There is this old Whitney Houston one. I can't see where my finger's going. The old Whitney Houston above Beyonce. I stole from my parents. It's an OG from the 70s.
Hell yeah.
It's great. This
Miller?
is the Dallas
I was gonna say, I love the
skyline.
Mac Miller.
Yes, Mac Miller. Again, the Dallas skyline is great. My friend got me that for my birthday. It was like an old album that was just kind of broken and somebody carved into it, which was fun. Kendrick, we have that right there. A couple Beyoncés. So yeah, big fan of music. It's one of my hobbies on the side. I like to go to record stores and kind of whatever cities we're in on the road and, you know, just look through the bins and everything. There's another wall on the other side of my apartment actually that you can't see, but yeah, big fan.
A regular Vinny Duber.
It looks great. I'll have to send you some record store recommendations for when you're in Chicago next.
Oh, please. Thank you. I would love that.
Hell yeah. We appreciate it, Kennedy. Again, Kennedi Landry, the Texas Rangers beat writer for MLB.com. You can follow her on Twitter at Ken Landry. Thank you so much for your time, Kennedy.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
We all silly like the mayor.